Pulu and Gao have a bucket list, a list of things they want to do in this life. Bungee jumping is on that list.
The whole thing about bungee jumping, I've been thinking about it for 3 days. Let me tell you my experience.
Only 3 days?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a rule. Do not think about something that stresses you until the day it's about to happen.
So you are a stressed man right now?
not really stressed, but it's like HIV, you know. You start by being afraid of doing something, and with HIV, you're afraid of coming out. You're afraid of telling other people that I have HIV. You're afraid of all these sorts of things, and then one day you jump.
There's a possibility that that piece of string can snap. It's a possibility.
Yeah, right.
For me, it's like coming face to face with fear, and then saying, I'm not going to back down. I'm going to take you on. I'm going to take the risk.
Okay.
Consuming as their activism has been, for Pulu and Gao, life had to be about more than HIV.
The relationship has gone beyond HIV, and the amazing thing is that we can sit and not talk about HIV. That's the kind of friend that I needed, and it helps you because they've been there, so they understand exactly what you're going through.
But it took these men a long time to find this freedom within themselves, away from activism. After the flood of emails that came in the wake of Pulu's online diary, he got funding to host a meeting where he could invite everyone who had responded.
I couldn't reply to all the emails, so I needed to come up with a way of people to talk to each other without me. So what I decided is that the best way is to create a platform where people can engage.
It was to be the birth of the Positive Convention of People Living with HIV. Seeing the advertisement in a Durban newspaper, Krista thought it was the answer to her prayers.
I don't want to say I was in the dumps, but I was just emotionally looking for something better. I was just looking for something with a bit of substance. And I think at that time I was also re-evaluating my life, asking myself, is this, I'm almost 40, is this all there is to life? And I saw the advert, and it was the first time I saw anything that mentioned positive, HIV positive people. And I thought, good gosh, you know, there are so many of us. Suddenly we're going to have a conference. Wow, I've never heard of anything like this.
Krista drove the 6-hour route from Durban to Johannesburg, there and back in one day to attend the first convention, a journey that totally changed her life. It started with a speech by Constitutional Court Judge and HIV champion Edwin Cameron.
Judge Cameron said a speech, and I will never forget it. And he said, can all the people who are positive stand up? And people stood up. And I sat there and I said to myself, I pray to God no one from Durban is here to see me. And then he said, can people who are on ARVs remain standing? So some people sat down. And then he said, can people who are not on ARVs stand up? I don't know what lifted me up. I stood up. And I remember I started crying. I just started crying. For me, it was a release. It was such a release because it said to me, you're okay. You're still here. You're okay. And secondly, it meant you're not alone. People were joking and they were standing up and they were, and I thought, I want that. I said, I want that freedom. I want my spirit to be free.
Since then, she's just been one of those people who kind of inspires me. She moved from being in a closet, if I can call it that, to presenting a show on radio about HIV, to getting involved in prison work. She's doing a whole lot by just being in a 6-hour conference.
Noma Somi attended only from the second edition of the conference.
For me, I just said, this is the platform that I've been longing to see, to go on, because the plight of people with disabilities who are having HIV is not being addressed.
I should have met this woman 2 years ago. I should have met her 3 years ago.
I'm like you.
She kind of speaks about issues that a lot of us do not address. Disabled people living with HIV. It's like they're not there, and we know they're there.
Please, 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 protect your partners.
I've decided to stop drinking alcohol. I do miss it. So I wanted to know... I wanted to know, Jorge, is it okay to still drink alcohol, and how much is too much?
Okay, thanks, ma'am. Alcohol in moderate amounts, at last a day of wine is okay. When you go to your gins, and Bob, I'm not saying pour the same amount of gin as the wine. Okay.
The convention connects people with their peers, fellow young professionals with big dreams and big lives to live. But most importantly, they get to practice getting comfortable with disclosing their status, something that is not nearly as easy or matter of fact as a lot of the literature and activism make it sound. Since the guys are in Durban anyway, they check in on Krista to see how she's doing. Her own journey with disclosure was a slow, deliberate one.
I know a lot of positive people who don't like me for this. I believe that the spread of a virus would stop if people that are positive can take a commitment or a pledge to themselves that I will not infect anyone. That means I disclose to my partner. That means whatever happens, whether I'm cut or I'm in a public space. For me, I once had a car accident. The first thing I said when I got out, when the paramedics were ahead, I said I'm HIV positive, so please be careful of my blood. When I went for an operation, I didn't have to disclose because they were cutting some bone that was sticking. I didn't have to disclose, but I said to the doctors, I'm HIV positive, so when you touch my blood, please be careful. And they actually said, thank you. One doctor said to me, I've never heard of anyone doing that, but thank you for telling us.
But disclosure can be a bit like bungee jumping, as Pulu and Gao find out. Despite their meticulously planned road trip, the rain had other plans.
Let's stop and check it out and see if we
can convince Mother Nature
talk to Mother Nature.
to be nice to us.
Yeah, I wish. I wish.
From your side, you may have laid out the whole route of disclosure. You can decide today's the day, but someone may just say something to throw you off or make you feel the timing isn't right. One of the country's leading HIV clinicians, Professor Francois Venter, has treated a spectrum of patients from high-level businessmen to young professionals for over a decade.
Some people disclose immediately the day after they find out their diagnosis, where it's a bit of a confessional thing, and then regret it forever after, because our communities are not exactly that accepting, and it's a complex thing to do. So I actually discourage people from disclosing initially. I think it must be a calm, careful decision that they make.
If you disclose, there must be a reason why you're disclosing. It's either you're disclosing in your family because you want, so that in case something happens, they can protect themselves. But you can't just disclose for the sake of disclosing. Yes, you're positive, and then what?
My experience is that when people do disclose, it's usually a much happier event than they anticipate. They often anticipate their brothers and their fathers and their mothers are going to reject them, and that's actually quite unusual. It happens, but it's quite unusual. Even more recently with employers, I've found that they're less likely to discriminate and stigmatize. There's strong evidence that people who have disclosed are more likely to take their drugs, are more have more access to support programs, and just generally do better, are happier.
If you don't want to disclose, I understand only when people say, I will get kicked out of home because of whatever. But I always tell people, educate them. Gradually educate them. Because this is not something that you can say, I will live with, I won't disclose, and be free and be happy. It doesn't. It doesn't work that way. Even when I'm in a room and I'm about to disclose or something, I do get nervous, not of judgment, but I get nervous because I don't want to be seen as AIDS. I'm not AIDS, I'm Krista. I still want to be seen as me. But I also want people to listen to the message.
It's impossible to look at Nomasomi today and imagine a closed-off, moody, depressed person crippled by the double stigma of disability and HIV. Starting on antiretroviral treatment and disclosing turned out to be her personal salvation.
Everything within me changed, my mindset changed. And I said, oh, there is life. I can live now. And then that's when I said, you know what, Mom? I'm not going to die. I told myself first, Nomasomi, you are not going to die before your kids are graduating. Even right now, I'm telling myself that I want to see my grandchildren.
Nomasomi lives an open life. Open. She's kind, truthful, respectful. Unomusa nje omningi uyaphuphuma makakwatile vele nje uyambona ukuthi ukwatile uthanda nokukhuluma kakhulu yabona mara uhlala nefoni yakhe esikhathini esiningi aloku ahleka ayi-one chat. She likes chatting.
She's a go-getter, that one. She's a fighter, more than able-bodied people.
Cheese.
In our family, she is the most educated person, and I don't think there is anything that will be able to stop her from achieving anything she sets her heart to do.
What the Positive Convention has done for Nomasomi, it can do for any of the hundreds of young professionals who link up there every week and meet twice a year. It's also become a springboard for Pulu to connect with yet more of the others he had always been looking for, like the Positively Alive support group for gay men who live positively with HIV.
I did a show on SAFM early this week, and some guy called in and he said, you people with HIV, it's God's punishment. And you know, instead of being angry, I just thought, oh my God, my work has just increased, you know?
Yes.
because you realize that the stigma is still out there and it's a lot of it.
My mother has told me in a conversation, a very nice, openly conversation, that she believes, she's very religious, that HIV is because we don't have wars like we used to have, you see. And that's the way that God is trying to keep mankind's population under control. You know, there I'm sitting saying, hello, what about me?
I did a few talks in schools and they know the basic sort of things, premise about HIV. But for them, is to see somebody who actually has the virus and is living healthy and all that stuff is like a revelation, you know. And it's like, wow, you know, when I do talks in schools or wherever, they usually want to touch me. I show my tests also, and my ARVs, because the ARVs, you know, they're pills. So they want to see the pills, you know. And I'm not joking, you know, they like, when I show the pills, I say, these are my ARVs. And people are like, oh.
Can you imagine a future where you're sitting in the lounge and maybe the you've been left with your grandkids, and on DSTV comes a program and it's all about HIV and AIDS, and the grandchildren look to you and say, what was that about? And we can actually say, oh, that was something that we dealt with when I was young. And we can talk about it in the past. Or what will we say? Or will our grandchildren look at us and say, but you silly old man, why didn't you do something about it?
Stigma, disclosure, treatment. These tend to be the biggies everyone always ends up discussing. And it's also what Pulu's day job is about, training corporates, parastatals, or government departments on HIV.
Now, if you're wondering how I got HIV through sex. Because a lot of people in this country, majority of the people who get HIV in this country, it's through sex. We do have sex, right? Now, a person who got infected with HIV did not do anything that everybody did not do. And many people in this country who are infected with HIV are in the so-called stable relationships or in marriage.
Yes.
Now, there's no room and there's no space to judge anybody. I want to ask you, as peer educators, to think about that. I want to ask you to make this your mission, to speak to people who are ignorant about HIV, that it doesn't change the person that you are. and nobody chooses to be infected with HIV. The sooner you take antiretrovirals, the sooner you take treatment, the easier it is for you because you will not experience as many side effects as you would normally experience if your CD4 count is very, very, very low. So speak to people about treatment, challenge your seniors about attitudes around HIV, because there's just too many people to ignore it. And the last part, I want to repeat again, if you don't have HIV, you don't want to get it. But if you're living with HIV, it's not the end of the world.